Welcome to Brazilian Beauty Lift's third podcast. Today I'm joined with the amazing William Foley, a wellness expert, celebrity facialist, and a big supporter of men's health. William helps men feel good inside and out by combining modern treatments with the emotional and holistic care. He was also one of the judges at our leadership award, industry leadership award, should we say. In this episode, we will talk about how men's body image is changing and how self-care is becoming a big part of that journey.
Well, what a great intro.
Thanks, William.
Thank you.
So come on, tell us about you.
So, like you said, I'm a celebrity facialist in the industry. I work with many on-screen actors. I'm also known as an aesthetician, a beauty speaker, a KOL, and ambassador for some brands as well, but an overall advocate for holistic health. I'm more into that overall well-being of a person than, that superficial nonsense. So, yes, that's where it all begins for me.
Amazing. So, William, you built a powerful presence in the industry and that traditionally female-dominated. What drew you to the world of beauty and aesthetics wellness in the first place?
Interesting. I still feel like I'm trying to power through in some respects, because it is just such a female-dominated industry, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
There's hardly any men around, especially with the line of work that I do. You'll get the male doctors and the male nurses, but no male estheticians, or none that I'm surrounded with. Even when I was back at the beauty college and studying clinical cosmetology, there was nobody there, no men. And it was so daunting to be in that room with, 30 women at a time.
Can only imagine.
It was intense, but I love that female energy anyway.
Yeah,
but,
of course.
It was daunting though, to go into a world, an unknown world actually, of, beauty and holistic, because aesthetics wasn't even around back then.
Oh my God, it's not been around that long, has it really?
I'd say, it's probably about 8 years.
Yeah.
So when I started off 17 years ago, firstly, I went into studying fitness and PT, and because I was obsessed by science. And then I kind of fell into health and social care, working with people.
Yeah.
And then I went down the route of holistic health and beauty and skin and clinical cosmetology, but it was a natural progression. But I'm digressing. So basically, there was no men around. So it was really daunting. I can imagine. I'm still trying to be that little bit of a trailblazer to showcase men can have a great career in this industry as well.
And you're doing phenomenal.
I'm trying.
You are, babe. You are. So in the early years, how did you deal with skepticism, both from clients and within the industry, about being a man?
Yeah. I don't know. I guess when women met me, they warmed to my energy. They knew what I was about. They knew my passion. It wasn't like, oh, you're a guy, I don't want to get anything done by you, And I was always really good at massages, by the way. So I got a really good reputation from delivering great massages. So I kind of built that name organically. So women started to see me because it was the word of mouth thing.
Yeah.
So I kind of broke through that stigma with that. But my main client list is more females, but we do have the males dripping in there.
Because you offer contouring treatments in your clinic, don't you?
Yeah. Contouring, cryolipolysis, things like that. Metameric stimulation, where we're stimulating metamer bands on the back for better organ function. So for me, it's always about that overall health for a person. But if we concentrate on that, we're going to get the best aesthetic result anyway.
100%.
And what's happening now in the industry is that buzzword with holistic aesthetics, but it's been around for ages anyway, and that should be our main focus. So I do offer that,
Oh, amazing. So was there ever a moment where you felt you had to prove your emotion or aesthetics intelligence to be taken seriously in your role?
Oh my God, all the time. Beck's still doing that now.
Really?
Still doing that now, yeah. Absolutely. For me, there was a bit of a stigma to even be called a beauty therapist. So I changed that. And I called myself an aesthetician in some respect. You can be known as a medical aesthetician when you work with medics in their clinic. So I've worked with great surgeons, doctors, dermatologists. So for me, I changed it, and then people took me more serious.
Yes.
Instead of thinking,
I can see why
you're a beauty therapist and you're just going to do lashes or nails or spray tans or pedicures, whatever that may be. And I was like, no, that's not what I'm about. I'm more skin focused.
Yeah.
And over time, it's been more of that wellness, that holistic part. So I had to change that. I had to change that wording just to be taken seriously in the industry.
And how long ago did you change the wording, Matt?
Oh, I'd say it was probably about 8 years. When aesthetics were really coming into its place, I remember there was a moment where I was working with specific brands and it was all very natural and holistic and it was great, but I wanted more results driven. And then I started to do sort of like, you know, researching into what was happening at the moment, and it was microneedling, skin peels, and mesotherapy. So then I trained in that, and then this is where the aesthetic world was really coming into its forefront. And then I changed the terminology of like my profession. So it wasn't a beauty therapist, it wasn't a skin therapist. It was more of a clinical aesthetician, because you're leading with science, clinical data, evidence-based treatments, and things that are going to deliver a result.
Yeah.
So that's how it all changed. And then people took me more seriously.
And did they? Did you see the change?
There was a change. There was a shift. Absolutely, yeah. Because you change as a person as well, because you're going from one world to the next. You know, I can work with great skincare brands, but there was very sort of like, you know, I'm not going to name names, but very sort of, you know, just doing the job surface level. Yeah. Where sometimes we might just need to do a little bit more of an invasive sort of like treatment, if you will.
Yeah.
So you change as a person, your language changes, your education changes. So it's that natural progression into, I guess, a higher skill set.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just by you recognising that and thinking, how can I do things different?
I needed to change because people wasn't taking me seriously. And for me, I didn't go into this industry not to be taken seriously. You know, like I remember going into the school where I was training, and I thought I knew where I wanted to go with it. And it was really high-end skin. You know, I wanted to treat skin at a high level. So I knew what I had to do.
So as a male practitioner, how do you relate differently to male clients who may be hesitant or even ashamed to seek out body treatments?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because men are having that conversation a bit more now. And I think because of the rise of social media, I think men are really focused about how they look, aren't they? You know, their bodies, how they look in terms of their facial autonomy. But I don't know. People are just having that conversation, and it's nice to see. But I still think there's that stigma for a man to go into a clinic maybe, or a salon, you know, to have something done.
I actually generally feel that the only men that really do it right now as well is if their girlfriend or the wives in the industry
are going to buy it maybe, or send them into the clinic.
And they're in the industry and they're like, do you know how important it is to put SPF on your face? Yeah. Like there's so many people that I speak to and they're like, just use Nivea. And I'm like,
I know,
Why should us as women look after our skin? We've got the same skin. Like, exactly. I don't get it.
Yeah.
Like,
encourage the mental confidence.
Yeah, why?
Absolutely.
And just because you've gone and bought, you know, a better cosmetic cream or whatever to look after your face, that doesn't make you any different.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, go and have a facial done once a month and see the difference in your skin.
You're right. And there's always lots of like motivations for men to sort of like want to get things done. They might have like gone through a divorce or a breakup, or like want to get a new job, or like, you know, even joining the gym. Everybody just wants to feel their best. So I don't think it's anything different for a female or a male to want to search for these things. It's just breaking the stigma.
I think they just need that encouragement. And then once they do it, like, oh my God, why have I not been doing this?
And then if they see a male in the industry doing these treatments, then they might think, oh, it's more approachable for me to go to that person maybe, you know, instead of going into, I don't know, a clinic full of women, you know. So,
because that can be quite daunting too, isn't it?
Absolutely, for anybody, and that's for a woman,
and that's a them problem though, not anything else. But they've got to deal with that, haven't they?
Yeah. But do you know what? To touch on like with the aesthetics for men and women, it's not a new trend, this, is it? Because like we've always, through centuries, wanted to look our best for different reasons. Yeah, like men, like back in the day of like Greek gods or Egyptians and Romans. Yeah, they wanted to be like this for a statue of like power, maybe, you know, to attract the opposite sex. So it's not a new thing. This motivation of wanting to feel our best. No. It's especially for men, you know, but the stigma just needs to change. We're allowed to go and get things done. We're allowed to look after ourselves, you know.
I think that's okay.
I think it's just breaking the stigma and just saying it's all right for guys to, you know, have something done. I mean, they're looking after themselves at the gym anyway. They're taking supplements, you know, they're eating the right way. They're building up with protein. So why is it such a bad thing if they want to look after the way they look in terms of their skin health? You know, I do
think a lot of it is education as well in understanding it, because when women go for facials, especially who if the therapist is doing it and educating them while they're doing it, you're understanding the reasons. And I know, and Amy Woods was the one for this, where we went on holidays when we were younger, and she used to go mad for not putting SPF on her skin. Like she'd be like, "Are you so mental?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but mate, you're dead fair. Like I'm sound." But I think, like, but once I got into the industry and I had learned the knowledge of the reasons, I was like, wow, that's wild. I never knew that. I'm glad I know it now, because if I'd have kept carried on where I was going until I was 60.
I mean, from an aging perspective, to use SPF on the skin, it's vital, especially when you're having treatments done in clinics to protect what you're like investing in. That's really important.
But I think educating them on that
education is key.
And this is why we do things like this, because I think tapping into that side of education and getting people to understand the reasons why it's important to look after your skin.
I think going back to males sort of like treatments, there could be real debilitating skin indications, say like scarring, for instance. Acne. Men generally have like more acne prone skins, and they could suffer really bad with scarring. I know, for being an acne sort of like patient back in the day, where it was terrible. I had like grade 3 or grade 4 acne, left me with terrible scarring, and it was debilitating. So, and this was like, when I was a teenager, but men still suffer with that now. So I think there's nothing wrong with them wanting to improve that indication, you know what I mean, by maybe some skin peels or microneedling or like resurfacing laser to help them feel confident again, because it is debilitating.
Do you think men know about those types of treatments? So do you think it's out there enough for them to understand that you could have those treatments? I don't.
No, not at all.
Don't. Because...
And this is where it's that we need to do the wider reach, and it's more about education, not just talking about facials, but it's more about what can we do for skin? What can we do? And there's lots of things that you can do. And going to the right people, by the way, people that can deliver these great treatments.
And I also think men wouldn't also look at, if there's an advert that come out on skin or scarring, it's always towards a woman. Always.
When you look at commercials and things like that, it's always, designed for a woman, isn't it? To go into clinic maybe, or get that cream, or like, to reduce that pigmentation. Or it's never for the men.
No.
You don't see Nivea for men, or whatever that may be, L'Oreal for men. There's many different brands, by the way, advertising for men to reduce certain things on their skin, or like change their skin or better their skin.
Right, I'm just team men. Team men. I just like, come on.
Team men, we're changing it.
We're changing it, definitely. So a lot of female therapists choose not to treat male clients, sometimes for safety, other times just out of discomfort. Do you think this needs to change?
I do, but I definitely think it's down to the person who wants to deliver the treatment. But I don't think it's a bad thing if they're cautious. But I think, why not? Why not treat the men? Why not? Why not bring them in for a full body massage? Why not treat them with devices? Men are wanting that anyway. But I think, you've got to be cautious. You've got to be comfortable with the person that you're treating. That's really important. But
I think you should just remember it's a treatment.
Just a treatment for a human being. That's
come on.
Whether you're male or female, don't think too much into that. But why not treat the males?
I know.
Advertise for it.
I think we just need more male people coming in and doing these types of treatments. Well, then that is just then going to help, isn't it?
This is another
You're not going to put women into that.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
exactly. Because if you had the male therapist doing these treatments, 100%. Then maybe you just, designate that patient to see that male therapist.
Yes.
I spoke about this with Professional Beauty. One of the reasons why I do like to be seen in the industry is to showcase that men can have a real great career in this industry. It's not just, you don't have to be female to be great at this.
And that's crazy though.
Yeah. Do you know any sort of like male therapists that are out there, or aestheticians, that are doing all of this? You might have a male therapist who's doing the massage route, but generally doing what I do, I don't know any.
I don't.
I really don't.
Well, you know.
Yeah.
Obviously. Yeah. So if anyone asks me that question again, I know Will. I know Will.
Yeah.
So why do you believe it's important for male clients to have access to body contouring or other wellness treatments from both men and women in the field?
I think the answer to that is why not? Why is it not approachable for men to have these treatments? Or why is it designed just for women? Men feel the same way. We feel sad. We feel conscious. We feel low self-esteem. So why can't we go into these places to have treatments done? But also looking after ourselves in general anyway. So, why not?
Do you know what as well? I actually think it's harder for men at times because men has to put that figure on. They have to put that front on.
They have
all
to
the
look
time.
like
Women,
they're being super masculine constantly. And they have to feel like they're being like a Greek god or a Roman
100%.
god. And it's always like that, isn't it? They've got to be really tough and think, they've got to have that perception like, I don't care about how I look. I'm not really that bothered. But actually, when you really break somebody down, or break what they're thinking down is that they do want all of these things done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember back in the day when David Beckham sort of like changed everything, didn't it? Because he was very much metrosexual.
Yeah.
So he'd use lots of styling products in the hair. It may be sort of like tan, or even the clothes that he would wear, highlights, you know, all of that. And it changed men's perception of even going into maybe hairdressers instead of a barber's to get things like this done, you know. So it has changed, but it's sort of slow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think just men on their own just carry a lot. And I think for them to just be able to accept and go, do you know what? This is okay.
Of course it is, absolutely. I mean, we talked about this before, didn't we? But like gay men, that's fine. They will run into a clinic, they don't care. And then you've got the straight man who are just a little bit more hesitant. They're a little bit nervous.
Yes, they
know, and they don't actually want to speak the words in terms, can I have a facial? And I know some of them that don't want to say that.
I know.
You know, but a gay guy would walk in and go, oh, I need this, this, and this, and this. You know, but straight men just don't want to do that because they feel they have to be super masculine all the time. And it's a shame.
It is, honestly, it makes me sad because especially around people's mental health.
Yeah.
And a lot of people's mental health comes from either how they're feeling, something that's happened traumatic.
Yeah.
And, you know, even when it comes to relationships, if you've been in a narcissistic relationship and you've got somebody telling you ugly or saying, picking you apart from a person.
Yeah.
As a woman, we'd break down but as a man, they just take
they
it
feel
on.
Like they can't break down.
No.
You know, they might go to the pub with the mates, but they're not going to talk about that, are they? Because they can't show like their feelings maybe, or that sensitive side and that being vulnerable, but that needs to change.
It does. It does definitely need to change.
They're allowed to, you know, showcase their emotions. I do.
No, yeah, we all do. I'm the worst. Just like, you're at it again. And I need to feel better, so I need to get it out.
Let it all out.
Let me just let it out. Just leave me be.
5 minutes.
How can the industry better support safe, inclusive spaces where both men and women can treat clients across genders without fear or stigma?
Interesting question. Is that based around a male therapist or both?
Both men and women.
To break the stigma of them being in the same space.
Yeah.
Well, why not just be all inclusive anyway?
I know.
You know, why not just have that all inclusive access? You know, I mean, you're in separate rooms having these treatments done anyway. But yeah, why not? Just keep. But
I feel like even like men going to women and women going to men. It's the same thing. Like we spoke about Sally coming to you and having contour.
I love Sally Dinnifer. You know, she always comes to me. She's been seeing me for like 3 years, and many other celebrities, female celebrities who come and see me, they don't have a qualm about coming and see a male therapist or aesthetician. You know, so why should it be the opposite way around?
Do you think so? I'm going to ask a random question on this though. But do you think sometimes this could be down to the relationship side of the partner not wanting you to go to a man?
Maybe that's a good thing to think about. Actually,
do you know what I mean? Because that's
maybe the girls wouldn't want their partners to go see a female therapist. Maybe I didn't think of it like that. So when you put that little twist on there,
because I do generally feel that again, but the more stuff that's out there in talking about that and making it okay. Yeah. And making it normal.
Yeah. Just to have that conversation like it is normal. Like you are listening to the barbers.
Like why would you not?
Because there's female barbers as well, isn't there? There is, So the male will go and get the haircut with a female barber. So what's the difference?
I know.
You know, so it's just about that conversation, making it all normal.
I think it's all more being more awareness, isn't it?
More awareness, yeah. These conversations are great.
Yeah, and we're going to talk loads about this types of stuff because I think it's important for people that, you know, watching podcasts like this and educating people on it and understanding it. So you work with many men who struggle with body image. Yeah. Something rare, and this is something rarely talked about. What are some of the most common internal stories or emotional blocks you see men bring into your treatment room?
Emotional stories. I think it's more about how they see themselves in the mirror, and their body shapes, things like that.
Okay.
But even facial structure, skin, you know, it's all of it. It's no different from a woman, by the way. You know, a man will think the same as a woman in terms of how they look and feel. So it will be the same sort of like conversations. Men will, you know, go, oh, this is sagging, this is this is that, and I don't want that line there anymore, or I just want to look better or look well. So it's the same conversation, but they just don't talk about it, you know, on a wider reach, if you will. Yeah. You know, it's very sort of like one-to-one. They're not going to go to the pub, are they, and start talking about, oh God, I've got this flabby bit here, but I'm going to go and get it frozen by Will. You know what I mean? I'm going to start with these wrinkles and, you know, get some microneedling done. They just don't say that out loud, but they'll come to somebody privately to have that done.
Do you feel, though, that you've had customers that have come for you for a facial, for example, and then you've advised and said, how would you feel about having Botox in that area?
Yeah.
Have you had a response of, well, are you serious? No.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because there's a perception of, you know, what that does. And I don't do Botox, by the way. I don't do any injectables. I keep it all sort of like supernatural. But there is that perception of having something done. Is it going to change? Is it going to change the way I look? Is it going to change the way, you know, anything structurally? And it's not. It's all gentle things, unless you do go down the injectable route. And I think they tie in the same thing in different parts of the industry. You know what I mean? So they'll think, oh, because you're getting a facial done, it is like Botox or dermal fillers or whatever that may be. They tie it all together as one, you know. And
how much knowledge do you feel that they have when they come to you about their skin?
None. They'll literally just like wash the face with shampoo maybe, or shower gel.
What's the worst one? What is that? Imperial leather?
Imperial leather,
oh my God.
Or Radox, bath bombs or whatever. And then go, sorry, what? Yeah. You know, it's like on the head, then the face, and then the body. That's how they'll wash.
But I'd probably love that if I was you when they came and did that, because the amount that would then change the skin.
Oh, I can literally educate and just change, you know what I mean, over time. And they'll start to feel so much better as well. Even just sort of like the skin appearance looking a bit brighter, or just how it feels to them can really change how they think and feel about themselves. You know?
Yeah, definitely.
You know, just doing small things.
And so how do you help men move past shame or resistance when it comes to caring for their physical appearance?
Yeah, I think one thing for me is that I always talk about self-esteem and confidence first. So I always say your self-esteem is my priority first, so then it becomes yours.
Yes.
Because that's where it has to start
100%.
from. You know what I mean? Building that person up and just educating them on things that we can do from internal aspects through whole foods, diet, mindset, nutrition, all of them things. And then go into the external things that we can really sort of like help in terms of shaping and tightening, and even muscle stimulation treatments now, you know, that can really enhance how the body looks, you know.
100%.
And there's always lots to do, you know. What's happening now is that I'm seeing some devices go into male sort of like PT clinics.
Okay, like the EMS devices. Yeah.
EMS, absolutely. Yeah. So now they're going into sort of like the fitness clinics, aren't they?
Yeah.
And the fitness gyms and the PTs are starting to use that now, which is great, because once upon a time that would just been an aesthetic treatment.
Oh,
you know,
they'd just look at it and go, what the hell's that?
For the booties, the booty lift. This is why we're here. But now men are wanting that done as well. Yeah. You know, and men are actually saying, oh, I'd like my bum to look a little bit more fuller maybe. Yeah. You know, even their abs, you know, the pecs as well. You know what I mean? They're getting them enhancements without even thinking it's a female thing to do. Because it's in a different setting, it's more acceptable.
I am loving that for the men though. Loving that.
I do. That. So if they feel like they're more comfortable by going into a gym and sitting with a PT, and, you know, the PT says like, you know, do this regime, but then we've got this device that can help enhance your muscle strength.
And faster, because...
And faster.
And actually, I do feel like, and with me, I pay for a gym membership and never go. It's always intention.
Oh God, don't talk about that. I'm never there. I go for coffee.
Honestly, like, what are we about? Like,
I literally head to the spa and wave at the gym and like,
and they go, make the first step. Yeah, made the first step. Pay a direct debit, wasted all that money and invested into Top Fitness. Well done, Bex. Great job there, mate.
Keeping the electric for them.
But I still won't, even though I don't go, I think, oh no, I won't cancel it. Yeah. Just in case.
Just in case you might go.
But a lot of mine is time. So I do feel that for them men to have these types of treatments where they think, I'm going to beef in 3 weeks. Like, I've not got time to do abs. But they have got,
like fix, you know.
Because it is faster.
Of course it is, absolutely. I mean, some of the devices, they're phenomenal. They'll stimulate muscle contraction to like 20,000 times.
It's mad.
You know, involuntary. It's impossible. Yeah. It's impossible to do, like, you know, yourself. So
using these. Doing these like 24 hours a day.
Have you got one?
On the machine.
They're intense, aren't they?
Intense.
They're intense, but they work. Like electric shock.
Literally, it's like that, isn't it?
So they do work. And so, you know, it's interesting to think that if they're in like a gym setting, a male will go and ask for that, but they won't if it's in a salon or an aesthetic clinic maybe. So it's just where they're placed, and it's where men would feel comfortable to have that conversation.
I think as well, like, men just don't go and look for it.
No.
They would never know that it existed.
Yeah, no, they probably wouldn't until like somebody said, oh, we've got this device here, mate. Do you want to have a go? Yeah, and it's going to increase your pec muscle, or like, you know, your abs are going to be so defined when you get to Marbella or Ibiza. And they'll go, of course, mate, get me on that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't they?
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, like with those types of treatment, if you've got, especially if you've got a few abs there anyway, and then they get on it and they're like, are you all right?
Yeah.
Are you all right? And they're looking at the cell thinking, that's sick.
Yeah, I'm coming again.
I want another go. Can I go on again?
I'm coming in 24 hours,
Give us just some on my thighs.
I'm going to get all my mates round.
I know, but that's
the conversation starter then, isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's where it allows men to sort of like search for them a bit more.
Yeah. So would you say aesthetics treatments like body sculpting can serve as an entry point into deeper emotional healing for men?
I think so, definitely. I think it will, you know, why wouldn't it? I think it's a great release for things like that. You know, I get people on the bed sometimes and they can break down in tears, you know, from that emotional trauma of what they've gone through with like different aspects of their body, what they've not been sort of like enjoying about their body, even facial things like scarring. You know, I can have people on the bed and they can cry.
Honestly, though, like women can cover that up.
Yeah,
men can't.
With makeup, men can't. You know, men can't do that, can't they? So, and I think what with that, it takes them back to that time where it was developing, how they felt at that time when the acne was happening and that scarring was starting to develop, and how they feel when they see sort of like pictures of themselves, or they're trying to turn for a different angle and they don't want the lighting on one side because it enhances that. You know, so. It can be an emotional journey, but I think this is where it all begins with anyway, aesthetics, right?
Yeah.
You know, it all starts with that emotional motivation.
Yeah, it does. And I also feel like it's like a weightlifter. So they're coming to you and then you're reassuring them that you can help them along their journey.
Yeah.
It's like that weight's gone. Ugh.
Absolutely.
And they're like, wow, my God, that's amazing.
Yeah, you're so right. And I think with as human beings, we hold stress in our body, don't we?
Yeah.
That emotional trauma. And even in our muscles, it's there, you know, across our trapezius or lower back, wherever that may be. Even having a massage can release that emotional tension and that trauma. Even for me, sometimes, you know, I had, what did I have done the other week? It was a sports massage, but the guy who did it for me did some scraping along the back with these metal rods.
It's amazing. I've had that done.
Oh my God, I've never had that done before. And I felt so good, but I felt like crying at the same time because I'd been so stressed. Yeah. And because like work's really high pressured, I'd like held everything in like this. Yeah. And you just don't know. Oh, so when I had that done, I felt like crying, you know, because it was like, oh, that's gone. I feel different.
It's weird, isn't it? It's weird. You're cooking and everything's great.
Exactly. So, you know, these things can help with that emotional side of things as well.
So, William, you often combined body contouring with lymphatic drainage, like absolutely love lymphatic drainage, by the way. Yeah. Can you explain how this affects not only the appearance, but also the emotional body, the emotional side of the body?
Emotional side of things, yeah. I would probably sort of like
touched on that a minute ago,
but I think, I mean, reduces inflammation, you know, releases toxins. It can help in terms of more of a results driven. You know, you're going to get a better aesthetic result, are you, by doing these things as well? And going back to some of the things that I do, even stimulating the metamer bands on the back, it can create that better organ function. So when you are doing something like, I don't know, cavitation or like cryolipolysis, your body's going to react better to that. So you're going to get a better result. So yeah, I think lymphatic drainage though, and me and Brooke touched upon this a little bit when we did the podcast, in and around people not knowing about it. Yeah, that's another thing.
And I think it's become bigger now because people have gone and had surgery and needed
that lymphatic drainage.
But they never realised that you could just have it.
Just have that done in general. Had surgery. And I know there's actually clinics out there now that just specialise in this, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Even after surgery.
Post-op, we have a lady that just...
Do you have that here? Yeah. And that's an amazing thing. But I think that should be more normalised as well, just to go and get that done. You know, the release of sort of like your emotions through that as well.
I know.
And inflammation and stress, you know, getting rid of the toxins.
And it's actually like people like feel like stones lighter after.
Of course they do. Yeah. Water retention. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it's an amazing thing, and it should just be more out there that normalised just to go and have that done anyway.
I think as well, surgeons should also implicate that they need to have it after surgery, because I know that there's a lot of people out there that just do surgery and once it's done, that's it. Now
that's
next
it,
one.
And you're done. Absolutely.
Yeah. So if they don't then don't understand about the aftercare, you know, sometimes, especially with gastric bands and sleeves, I see so many women that feel worse after the sleeve because of the loose skin.
Yeah,
because
that's
they've
right.
not spoken about
Absolutely.
all these different types of treatments.
So
They don't
right.
make it a must.
Yeah.
But, you know, they advise because it's not necessarily with that clinic and they don't offer these types of treatments in the clinic. But I do generally believe that we should link, you know, as in brands should link up with
absolutely,
with hospitals and surgeons
to make it part of their journey. You know, so they're going to get a better result.
It's at the end of the day, it's the customer that felt like that in the first place that is coming to see you. Now we need to make sure that they get the best results
and
possible.
Get into that end result. You know, that surgeon's going to do one thing, but then what about all the loose skin? If that's
it's going to make them feel worse, William, aren't they?
Of course it is, and then it's tougher to sort of like, you know, get that better anyway. That loose skin, isn't it? You know, so working together as a team, multidisciplinary team. Absolutely.
100%. And I think it's down to the educating the outside world of that as well. Yeah. So you talked about detoxification and immune support. Why are those so central to your protocols for men?
I think it's vital. I think looking after ourselves as a human being and looking after the immune system, it's just important for our overall well-being anyway, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So why we're not going to focus on that cellular health first?
Yeah.
You know, why not focus on that? I'm big on all of this, by the way. I love this holistic approach. And it has to start from the inside on a cellular level first, and then it reflects on the outside. No point doing all that great aesthetic work if you're not looking after yourself inside. You know, I'm big on biohacking, so any little thing that you can do with biohacking, and basically it's DIY biology. So you're just consciously making a better choice for yourself to feel better, whether that be from food, whether that be from diet, mindfulness activities, being out in daylight, sun, using sun as medicine, by the way, but still, you know, protecting the skin. Being out in nature, these things are like vital for us as human beings.
Yeah,
you
they
know?
are.
So I'm really big on things like that first. And then we go in with the aesthetic stuff, you know.
So what are some physical symptoms men come in with, like inflammation, fluid retention, or low energy? How do you tailor your approach to support them holistically?
Yeah. So we talk about all of that. Yeah. And then we'll talk about even supplementation. So I work with some great guides called Amaranth. And they support the patients nutritionally. Okay. I can do the aesthetic work. And then it's just guiding them through that and creating that long-term aesthetic healthcare program. That's what I like to focus on, you know, even if it's through supplements. So just advising them on whole foods and what we can do for them, you know, and then the aesthetic part as well.
Education again.
Education. It's just constant education. And the thing is, everything's always changing constantly. Yeah, so even for us as practitioners, everything's always changing. Science is always moving forward. There's always new things on the market. So it's that constant conversation. And I think for practitioners, it's always about that education too. Yeah. We have to keep learning. You know what I mean? We have to keep learning. What I do find though, sometimes is that going back to simplicity, you know, a simple lifestyle, a simple whole food diet can really improve somebody's like overall well-being and their skin quality as well, and their mood. So when I talk about like mindfulness and things like that, it's to improve that mindset and to reduce cortisol. You know, we start releasing lots of cortisol through stress. Our skin behaves differently. We behave differently, you know.
Sleep, all that type of stuff.
Inflammation, things like that. So, you know, for people think it's hocus pocus when I start talking about mindfulness or like being in the present moment or being in the now or, you know, go and hug a tree. These things actually can work. You know, you might know.
I'm a massive believer of all that.
Are you?
Yeah. Massive,
I can tell actually. I can tell with your energy. But like, I think it's important to live that simple life as well. Advise people to do these simple things. You know, we live in a constant world of tech.
It doesn't cost anything.
It's free, isn't it?
Yeah.
Take yourself out for a hike.
It is.
Go and swim in the cold water. I'm not doing that, by the way. I can't stand that. But it's so hard, isn't it?
I always look at it and think, I'd love to do it, but I
can literally do like a 5-second sort of like dip in the shower and then I'm running out. But yeah, the simple way of life it's huge. We live in such a techie world at the moment, don't we?
Yeah, and it used to be like that years and years and years ago. That because the world's changed so much now.
It has. It has gone.
Forgotten. Forgotten.
Yeah. I consciously made a decision at the beginning of April to sort of like move work commitments because I was at burnout point. And I recognized it so much that I wasn't feeling my best. I remember there were certain symptoms and I thought, oh no, I just need to rest. I need to be sort of like wholesome with my life. I just want to go out walking the dog. I want to be in forest. I want to be up a mountain or whatever that may be, or read a book and don't have that stimulation with my mind. You know what I mean? Or that pressure of work. Yeah. And I literally did that for a whole month. And I just took that time off. Mate. It was hard for like, even like not being on the phone as much. You know what I mean? Because that stimulation can be crazy for the mind, you know, so.
And I do think it's really, really important. And I think anybody in business, and our customers talk about this a lot around these types of periods, because they go burnout. And again, they don't want to let their customers down because of whatever. And it's all about, because of the way we're built as people, we don't want to let people down, and we forget about ourselves. We're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, we can never pour from like an empty cup. This is what I always say. So it has to be full.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with saying no sometimes. But I understand as a business owner, somebody who, you know, who's ambitious and driven, you want to say yes to everything. Yeah. But actually you can't, because you're just going to burn yourself out, and then you're no good to no one. And most importantly, yourself. Yeah. So yeah, that's another big one.
And it is really important to do that. So how do you address common misconceptions like the idea of these treatments are just cosmetic or not for men? Yeah.
I think it's touching on the things that I've said before, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
Not just talk about them as a superficial treatment, just an aesthetic treatment. It's more of a wellness treatment. So I like to call everything my aesthetic healthcare program, because that's what it is, but it includes everything in there.
Yeah, I love that.
You know, not just the aesthetics, but it's the health, it's the lifestyle. I mean, people come to me for a consultation, they're with me for 60 minutes and going, how's your relationship? You know, are you stressed? How's that going? You know, what do you do for work? And we're going, well, I haven't talked about skin yet. But all of them markers for me are really important.
I think,
you know, as a person, I need to know what's going on as a person, what's your motivation as well. And, you know, I've learned that along the way. We need to have them conversations with people.
And this is something we actually talk about, and Amanda's implemented into training a lot. At consultation, you know, you're meeting your customer and you want to get to know him. You need to understand the root of why you even want these types of treatments done. But, you know, understanding them. And I think really it's so important for people.
You have to find out about that person, you know, and what's going on with their life, whether that be something like part of their medical history, you know, or their motivation, like I said before, but just really tune into that patient, you know, and how are you going to help them, you know, through education. That's what it is. And I never sell anything. I'll educate until the cows come home, and that's what sort of like sells, you know, and I'm a big believer on that. Just educate people to make their own decision.
And I think that's something that we do, especially as a brand, and especially me, when I deal with customers, I'm very much like, if I feel that somebody's not in the right headspace, so I'm like, do you know what? I think you should come back to me next year. Because I've spent my time with you, and actually it's not going to work unless you do this, this, and this.
So good.
And if you're not accountable, if you're not doing it, I want this to work for you, but I also know by our conversation that you're not quite ready yet. So do you know what? We're still going to be here. Come back to me next year when you're ready. Get things right. And you would never know that if you don't ask those types of questions to your customers.
Consultation is really important.
And I think, and even from a sales perspective, because I think for some customers, they love the idea of it. And they'll see something on an ad, and we all do this. Oh my God, that looks amazing. Right, let's book a phone call. Yeah, right, okay. Impulsive buyers. They scare, can't be, by the way, like impulsive
because they
buyers.
Just see money as well. They say, oh, I can earn £60,000 in such a, you know, small space maybe. But that you might not be, you know, at the right time of your life to be doing all of that just yet.
And then when I push back on them and go, right, so if you've got time to do this, if you've got time to do that, what should your branding look like?
Oh my God.
You know, what does this look like?
It's not just about having the device in clinic and then like go, it's everything to go with it, isn't it? You know?
So, you know, and I like to be able to mentor them, and I like to be able to show them how to do that. But I can't do it for you. So if you're not in that headspace to do that and work alongside me with you, I'm going to say no.
Yeah, that's great. That's ethical. I love that.
And I think that's how
important.
It's really important. We're not just a business and a brand that's just going to take money off people. We want everybody to succeed. But you've got to be in the right mindset to do that. And if you're not, it's fine. I can still work with you. People still speak to me. People will still, and I'll check in, how you're getting on, where you're up to with this, and they're like, Bex, we're still, because that's also important to me. And I just think in whether you're a man and a woman, that's still, you know, it's important you're a person at the end of the day.
Absolutely, that's all it is.
So we're going to go back into we're going to ask you some questions about your biohacking now. So you really believe in biohacking?
Oh my God, I do. Absolutely.
So for listeners unfamiliar with the term of this, how would you define it?
So I always say it's, like I said before, DIY biology. So you're picking up things that are going to work for you. So whether that be through nutrition, eating whole foods, or whether it be being into mindfulness or sitting in the sun or having a cold plunge, these things are here to sort of like help us feel better. From my own personal journey. So I think it was about 6 years ago now. I mean, I've suffered with asthma like all the way throughout my life, but then I read a book by the gorgeous Davinia Taylor. And it's out now. She's got about 3 months now. Go and buy it. And it was about, biohacking, and it was about eating whole foods. And I remember following this, and it was transformational. So my asthma cleared up. I didn't have to go and see the doctor because I didn't need the blue inhalers.
Or the brown ones.
Or the brown ones, the preventer. Because I just didn't want to be relying on these things. But I became more conscious to like how my body was working. And then my mindset was like superior. It was like, wow, I was thinking clearly. I was more ambitious. I was more driven. My body shape changed as well because I was eating better food. So that went into a nice physique, and I loved all of that, because who wouldn't?
Yeah, of course.
My face did. My skin quality went better. So from that moment, I just thought, God, if this is happening to me, then I want to pass that message on, but into the beauty and aesthetic world as well. Because it's very much into sort of like the nutrition world, but I thought bring this into beauty clinics and
100%.
aesthetic clinics, and even holistic health clinics. Bring all of that in, talk about that. So that's why I do all of that in my consultations, because it's important. When I speak to people about it, so like, what's biohacking? I'll tell them about it. They go, oh, I do that subconsciously, and you feel good, right? So do more of that. And it's interesting because even I see people's skin change. Just by eating a certain
even the
way,
right food,
even their mindset being calmer, it changes. If we're stressed, our cortisol will go through the roof. Our cortisol will then affect how our skin behaves. We'll even produce more oil on our skin. So then we get more inflammation, not just in our body, but on our skin. Even acne breakouts. So it produces a lot more oil. So if we can keep our sort of like mind calm, and it's very hard, I know that.
Yeah, definitely.
But it can have that great effect on like how our skin behaves. And I say this on beauty stages up and down the country, and it works, as well as the other things that we can do. But, paying attention to all these different biomarkers, then it's a great tool to have. So yeah, biohacking, research it, guys.
Yeah, research
It's a great thing. It's a great thing.
I believe in it, and I generally, and I feel like I have half a bowel. So for me, being able to look after my gut, before I obviously had my problems, I never knew anything about it. So I've had to research.
So you've done the research as well.
Yeah.
And do you feel better by,
honestly, and the difference from me having, like, even when I go out for food and have like fresh salad, my friends will be like, mate, you can make that at home. And I'm like, I don't give a shit.
I know, because you're going to feel great.
Because I feel you're going to just fall asleep and slug in a minute because you're eating that bloody double cheeseburger or whatever.
It's interesting, Bex, because like sometimes, we'll have the occasional treat and we'll go out for food. And then the next day, I'll feel slightly hungover. Or I sort of have that wheeziness about myself. And I think, oh my God, it's because I've had that ultra-processed foods, or I don't know what's in that food. Yeah. But then at home, if I'm cooking from scratch, it's all that whole food constantly. Yeah. And it's just amazing for how I feel.
It's mad, isn't it?
It's mad. And I think a lot of people, like, on the Western sort of like diet, they're eating constantly like processed foods thinking it's healthy. But when you break it down to them ingredients, sometimes when you look on the back of a packet, you think, I can't even say them words. And you go, why am I sort of like putting that in there? So I'm very much about skin as well with this. So when I look at sort of like labels on skincare, it can be like that. And you think, oh my God, well, if I'm doing everything good for the inside, then surely I need to do that for
the outside.
The outside. Skin's been, our largest organ. So why not sort of like tally that up? So I play around with different skincare as well, whether that be natural or even prescriptive. I think there's places for both, but I make them conscious decisions, And
I think that's important as well. And I do generally feel like when you look after your inside and your outside,
it just reflects.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing of like beauty sleep, it's not a made up word. You get a good night's sleep and you feel fresher, but you look fresher.
No, you do.
Don't you?
Yeah.
If you're just really stressed, or you see your friend really stressed, you think, oh my God, you're all right. Because you can see it in their skin.
You can.
Or even just
and it just goes darker, doesn't it? It's
darker,
just like,
duller.
Yeah.
And going back to whole foods as well, like too much sugar is going to create that glycation in skin. And then that, breaks down our collagen. So it's them things as well. So when I'm talking to people, when they want to have microneedling, I have to talk about that, because if I'm doing all the hard work on the outside and then you're going home and throwing down, a big bag of dairy milk, then,
Oh, we talk about that all the time, having body treatments. You must do like.
It's the same thing, isn't it?
Can't go and neck a bottle of wine tonight, mate.
No, exactly. And it's all right to have that treat, but making that conscious decision about your lifestyle is important, I think.
And I actually love it when I see people and I'm in the supermarket and they're actually reading the back of stuff and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, my personal
I'm
life.
one of them.
I love that.
I'm one of them.
That's what I mean.
I'm that.
Because I think you have to, because someone brings something new into a supermarket and they do great marketing with what the product looks like on the outside and nothing is said about you.
Yeah.
But again, people are not educated. People wouldn't go and look at something and think, oh my God, you know, that's got that in it. And I'm
because of great marketing saying how healthy it is, or it's that packed with protein, and think, oh great, that's what I'm going to have. But instead of having that whole food of let's say a steak maybe for protein, they're throwing down a protein shake. Well, what's all that made of? Lots of weird chemicals in there that's going to trigger inflammation.
I know.
And poor gut health. So for me, it's always, I'm very much into ancestral living as well. So I always think of cavemen. How would they sort of like deal with life, or what would they do? Well, they wouldn't be nipping to Tesco's Express to get a pizza, would they? They'd be going for like a steak or a burger or whatever that may be, a whole food or a chicken. So I have that mentality as well.
I think it's important, definitely.
Ancestral living, do all of that.
What part of your approach involves working with ancestral and inherited patterns?
Oh.
So we've touched upon that quite nice.
About that, haven't we?
How do you see these influences show up in the men you treat physically or emotionally?
Yeah, it's like what I've been talking about. You have that conversation around, the simplicity of life and going back to basics. And it can improve how that physique is looking, So it enhances body treatments when they are going into clinic, Sometimes it's hard to do it on your own. So having them treatments to enhance everything is great, but you've got to do all the hard work as well.
No, of course you do. Of course you do. How do treatments like lymphatic drainage help men process deeper emotion or even inherit stress responses?
Just by releasing that, getting rid of toxins, even sort of like that movement across, even the fascia, can release so much tension and stress, can't it?
Definitely.
So even when I had that massage and it just released so much, but I know that that's what will happen for men in general anyway, Do
you think men know about lymphatic drainage?
No, absolutely not. They don't know anything about that. They'll know about muscle and that's that, they'll know about the word massage, but they don't know anything about that terminology. So it's about educating them.
I think that is so important, because how many people, everybody suffers with IBS, by the way,
course,
everyone does.
Yeah.
But why is it okay for a woman to go and have that and men not have that and not be, have that sort of educated to them?
It's just about education. So girls, educate the guys, send them in for massages.
That's what you need to do, 100%.
Send your partner for some sort of like good.
If he's complaining about the gut, go on. Yeah. Let him have a lymphatic drainage massage.
Whole Foods.
So why is understanding ancestral health, like how their ancestors live, ate and moved, so important for modern wellness today?
Yeah,
I think you touched upon that before.
Yeah, I think it's really important just to sort of think about like how our ancestors would have lived, and try and bring that into our modern way of life. Even things like, being in sunlight. And I know our industry is very much about, SPF content, which I agree with from an aging perspective and to protect that skin. But using sunlight as medicine can really help.
In the UK,
by the way, we don't have a lot of sun. So as soon as we see it as human beings, we want to run to it. Yeah. We're like, oh my God, what's this? So, that's ancestral living. Our ancestors would have worshipped the sun, by the way, in terms of the Greek gods and things like that. But I think it's important to understand them little parts of ancestral living to have that overall wellness. I love the sunshine. Who doesn't, by the way?
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, I have.
It's like a vitamin D intake. It's great for our immune health. So why wouldn't we want to embrace that sun?
And vitamin D, obviously, people struggle with vitamin D in the UK
they do,
because of that, don't they?
Honestly, I think our winters get longer. Our summers are shorter. I think this is our summer now. I'm dreading sort of like July and August because it's probably going to be dark.
This is what happens every year. Do you not think? Every year we get summer now, and then everyone just talks and says, "Oh, look, you can't wait for summer." I'm like, mate,
no, we're in it. This is it now. So absolutely. So after this podcast, I'm going to go and sit in the park with the dog and the partner and embrace sun.
Absolutely, babe. I would do that. I would.
Protect your skin and wear SPF when needed, guys.
Do you know what? SPF, like I said, I touched on it before. I just didn't. I was like, "What's that?" But now, I mean, look, I've got white neck, literally, because my SPF was so important. So do you believe recognizing these patterns can help men take back control over their health journeys?
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? Being conscious about what you're doing, being conscious about your lifestyle, mindset, take back the power. Absolutely.
So, and yeah, I do think though with men sometimes it's just generally making sure they're aware of stuff. And I think more things that we're doing like this.
Yeah. More conversation. That's what it's about.
We just need to make sure we do something on the front when we advertise this to get a man to look at it, and we could think of something. But
you want some clickbait?
Yeah, that's what we want.
What can we say?
I don't know. We need something though to encourage them to come and watch this podcast.
For men to be in their masculinity, that's the thing. You know, have that masculine energy. I think that's a big one. I think sometimes living in the world where we're living now, do you think men are sometimes scared to sort of like be super masculine these days, with females being so like powerful these days and being in their female energy?
Yeah.
Do you feel like men can be sort of like a little bit sort of, I don't know.
I 100% like,
you know, because you seem like a really strong female.
Honestly.
So a man would have to really come in and sort of like try and match that.
Oh, mate.
You know.
And they struggle. They try.
They struggle.
They try and they struggle. But I'm also like,
in your female energy as well, and wanting that male to
I want that, but then I'm like, but I don't understand why you feel that you have to be at that level. Why can't you just be the same?
Just be the same.
I just honestly, I really struggle with it because it's okay to do that.
Absolutely.
You don't have to be this guy that does this and does that,
and that's how sometimes a man will feel, right? They have to feel that sort of like, you know, that sort of that real strong masculine guy. You know,
you
to
can't
look after
even have
their
that
woman.
conversation though. You can't even. This is the struggle. Like, why do you feel like that? What makes you feel like this?
Yeah.
What's the root
breadwinner?
of this?
You know, the one who's going to protect and you know, love. I mean, that's fine if you want that as well. Why not? You know, if that's your role, that's what you think it is. But women want to feel that as well, don't they?
Yeah, they do. I am in my masculine energy a lot.
Yeah.
When it comes to just work, generally, life in that sense.
Ambitious, you're driven, motivated.
Yeah, that's also important. But also that's okay. Do you know what I mean?
It is.
So, William, you've already accomplished so much in the wellness and aesthetic space. What next? What's next for you in your journey?
That's a really interesting question. God, do you know what? I don't really know. But all I know is that I just stay true to me. I stay aligned with what I'm doing. And, you know, just doing the great work just for people to feel their best. Yeah. Overall, I think that's what I keep doing.
Have you got any new treatments, projects, collaborations?
Oh, things I can't talk about just yet. But
we hate this.
I know.
Can't tell you. Sorry.
But yeah, there's some great things coming up. And in terms of things that I want to do, I think more of sort of like the naturopathy medicine route I'm going to go down, that nutrition. I'm going to bring that into my skill set so that I can just offer that to patients all the time. But there's some exciting things coming up in the year. Absolutely. Yes. And I think I'm just going to carry on doing what I do, staying aligned with my own message, and not follow the crowds.
You've been a judge again this year at the awards?
I am for you guys, yes.
Yeah, I love that.
I'm going to make it this time.
I love that.
I can't wait.
So, and finally, what's one thing you want every man listening to this podcast, and we will channel you into this podcast today, to take away from this conversation?
Just to be comfortable to have that conversation surrounding aesthetics and beauty and skin and wellness, and having that conversation with your mates. Have it in the book if you want, you know, broaden that conversation, you know, and talk about how you feel. If you want to improve certain things, then why not? You know?
I feel like in the groups of men in the pub, we need one like me that goes, conversation starter, come on.
Yeah, we need to talk about this.
Yes.
And that's it.
And how do you feel about that?
Yeah.
Some of them might not. I feel like somebody wouldn't speak, but then would go away.
It's the people who are self-conscious would probably make fun of all of that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then the other person would think, I don't really want to talk about that. But I bet they really do.
I know, 100%
I bet they really do. Of course they do.
William, thank you so much. Thank you so much for an enlightening and a health-fat conversation. You've opened up about so many things today. Things like this I love talking about because it's an interest to me.
Yeah.
But I've also been on that journey myself, and it's very, very hard to educate everybody, and not everybody wants to hear it. Yeah. But I think we're starting somewhere. Yeah, we're doing it. We're doing it.
Yeah. And it just be a little trickle.
And
you know,
if we touch someone and they touch someone else, I think that's really important.
And that's our intention.
100%.
You know, just to sort of like get that message out there.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you
so much.
Thank you.